Hello and welcome to the Medical Sales Podcast, and I am your host, Samuel. In this podcast, I interview top medical sales reps and leading medical sales executives across the entire country. And it doesn't matter what medical sales industry, from medical device to pharmaceutical to genetic testing to diagnostic lab, you name it. You will learn how to either break into the industry, be a top 5% performer within your role in sales, or climb the corporate ladder. Welcome to the Medical Sales Podcast. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Medical Sales Podcast. So today we have with us a very fascinating guest. His name is Adam King, and he is an executive enterprise leader with a very large medical technology company that you're going to hear about very, very soon. He's a 16-year veteran in the medical device space. And he was originally an engineer that discovered a gap between engineering and science while getting his master's degree. And that took him to the start of a very, very successful career in medical devices. And one thing he says that I'm going to note now that you're going to hear about time and time again in this interview is I want them to know when I'm there and miss me when I'm gone. It's a great interview. I hope you enjoy it. And thanks again for listening to the Medical Sales Podcast. All right. Today we have with us Adam King. Adam, how are you today?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
Oh, fantastic. All right, Adam. So Adam is the enterprise leader at Medtronic. That is an executive role. Adam, why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit about what that role means and who you are?
Sure. Yeah. So it's a relatively new role at Medtronic. It's been around for probably 2 to 3 years. But as you can imagine, Medtronic's a big company. We have 4 main divisions, and the enterprise role is really to help coordinate efforts across those 4 business units, whether it's for large IDNs or different customers, so that we all kind of know where we're being strategic and what we're trying to do. We don't have major significant overlaps. And also, so those customers have one point of contact. As you can imagine, just to call into Medtronic and ask for somebody, you'd get lost for a couple hours. So my role is to try and be the main point of contact and kind of usher them to the right people.
Sure. What are the different, you said 4 different business units. What are they?
Yeah. So for Medtronic, we have the diabetes unit. We have cardiovascular CVG group. We have RTG, which is restorative therapies, probably most well known for pain and spine, those groups. And then in addition to that, we have Legacy Covidien, which is our minimally invasive therapies group, or MITG.
Excellent. And how long have you been with Medtronic?
So total of about 16 years. I actually came in through an acquisition myself about, 8 or 9 years ago. I'm losing track. It's been a while.
Excellent. Okay, so take us back. We all want to know, how'd you start? I mean, when you were a little guy in your childhood years, was it that one day you'll be the enterprise leader for Medtronic, or did you have a different type of dream in store?
Yeah. So number one, any of my friends that'll listen to this, they'll say I'm still a little guy. But yeah. So when I was in undergrad, my undergrad was in engineering. I came out my first couple of years, did a lot of different research, worked on superconductors. My undergrad was ceramic and materials engineering. So I could either make really fancy toilets or I could go into superconductors. So I think my parents were happy I went towards superconductors. But one really pivotal day was I was in the office and we had a business meeting, and this group came in, big company, and they wanted us to make our engineering platform on this substrate that by the laws of physics you couldn't. And this business guy could not get it out of his head that we couldn't do that. And I realized there was this gap between engineering to science. That's what forced me to really kind of pursue my master's degree. And that's what led me to med device. It was just a natural fit to say, listen, there's a lot of science in obviously med device, and we've got to bridge that gap and be able to understand the business side of it as well. And that's what I went after.
Wow, you saw a need and you tackled it. Okay, so you went from college straight into your master's degree. What was your master's in?
So just general MBA.
Okay.
And then we did my master's thesis was med device distribution. So we looked at joint ventures. We looked at, licensing, any way you would go about bringing a med device to market, direct sales channel.
Got it.
From there, I met a bunch of VP of sales. But I actually got my master's at the same time I was doing my first job. So I was an engineer working in a lab, and then I'd go to night school for my MBA.
Okay. And where was that first job?
So first job was really back in Atlanta. It was at a tech company called Microcoding Technologies. And then from there, really started to try and figure out, what I like to do. I realized I like talking to people, and in a lab, you talk a lot to
Can't do
yourself.
that.
It's not quite as exciting. So that was also kind of the reason I thought, man, I think sales is a fit. I got to try it.
Nice. Okay, so then you were an engineer in the lab, getting your MBA. I'm assuming you graduated with your MBA before you moved on to a sales role?
I did, right at about the same time, actually. So I had 2 classes left in my MBA. I interviewed for a job back in Phoenix. I was in Atlanta at the time. So I interviewed for a job back in Phoenix, which is where my family was, and got the opportunity. So I was able to transfer my last 2 classes back to finish my master's when I started my first actual med device job, which was the one with Aero at the time.
Wow. Okay. And what was that transition like? I mean, you'd been in the lab, so I can imagine it was quite an awakening.
A steep learning curve, to say the least.
Sure,
yeah.
Sure.
But it felt natural, right? I love getting in front of people. I love helping people. So being able to get into, med device, and when I say med device, I almost put in air quotes, it was custom IV sets, tubing, stopcocks. So you can imagine this is not like, it's not like I was selling hip implants, right?
Right.
But it was a med device job. I was thankful for it.
Yeah.
We could do custom things. So I was selling to hospitals, vets, ambulances, anybody that would listen. And that was my first opportunity to go, hey, look, if you think you're an extrovert, go try it and see what happens.
That's
excellent.
It worked. That's excellent. All right. So that was an Aero International. And then you made the move into Brasseler. Talk to us, walk us through that. So what is Brasseler and what was that move like?
Yeah, so Aero, when I was there, obviously with IV sets, you didn't get into the OR a whole lot. You were dealing with kind of people outside the OR. Brasseler was orthopedic blades and burrs, so neuro. So actually we would compete with the Midas Rex from Medtronic for blades and burrs, everything from podiatry to total knees. And I really went after it because it got me into the OR. And I think you'll hear a lot of reps, right, as they want to kind of get into med device.
Yeah.
The OR is an exciting place, yeah. So that allowed me to finally get into the OR, at least as kind of a toehold. Brasseler was kind of a low end, more commodity.
Okay.
So we weren't held probably in the highest regards, but man, they gave me an opportunity, and it allowed me to continue to progress. Once I was in the OR, then you kind of start looking for other jobs and seeing what worked.
Okay. So then you were in the OR. And what was the product again with Brasseler?
Yeah, so it was blades and burrs. So anything like the blades that would go on to the total joint when they're doing the actual sawing. So it would go onto the power tool. We would sell all different blades, and yeah.
Wow. Okay. So then you went to Salient Surgical Technologies. How did you leverage that? Talk us through that. Brasseler to Salient.
Yeah. So startup world, right? So I was in a lot of startups when I was in engineering, and then started to move towards med device. I had been in the OR with Brasseler and was able to leverage the fact that I had OR sales in my background to talk to this. At the time, it was called TissueLink, was the name of the company that changed to Salient that got acquired by Medtronic.
Sure.
So TissueLink was a startup. At the time, there was like 12 million in sales, 15 reps. And thankfully, they took an option on me as far as, being an engineer and then a master's and then having some sales.
Yeah.
They, I never in a million years would have thought that this kind of dripping Bobby would have gotten me where it was. But, man, 16 years later, here we are. And it was an incredible step in the right direction.
Wow. So that's how you became a part of the Medtronic, is you were bought when you were with Salient.
Right. We had a ton of orthopedic breast oncology exposure and some through electrophysiology, which is obviously a big component of Medtronic. So the power portfolio, energy portfolio just really tucked in nicely.
Got it. So when you look at your profile, you can see that you made some huge leaps even within Medtronic. I mean, you started off with Director of Market Development and Strategy, and then you went all the way to VP roles, where VP of Marketing, VP of Orthopedic Solutions. Talk to the audience a little bit about, what was it that helped you make those moves? Was it the networking you were doing? Was it just your performance was off the charts and you were just making things happen? Were there opportunities playing in the market? I mean, talk us through some of that.
Yeah, so there was definitely a couple factors involved. One, I never found that I'm not very shy, but I wanted to get into the OR. I had a saying that I want them to know when I'm there and I want them to miss me when I'm gone, which implies that I'm not just there and being annoying. They know I'm there, but they also know, like, man, I would get the little guy back in the room. I want to talk to him because I wanted to add value. And I took that same mentality so I was in the field for a long time. Then I went to be a manager. when I moved into management, I started writing these kind of like one-pagers, kind of like newsletters. I call them brain flows. But I wanted to add value to my team. And then it kind of extrapolated to where other people in the company were reading them. And they were tips and tricks and pearls of wisdom, all the things that I think we see now. But I took it upon myself just to try and share them. And I think the important thing was to go outside of the realm or the procedure that we were in, right? I could be an expert in my device or an expert in a total joint, but then understand what the anesthesiologist is looking at or what the circulating nurse is looking at. And that's what I would write up in these things. And I think that kind of helped promote a little bit of myself internally, and truly unintentionally. It wasn't meant to be a promotion. It was, I'm here to help. So that was one. I think being willing to go out there and learn more and then share it, and I have 10 rules I live by, one of which is serve. And that's what I wanted to really be able to do is, again, it was meant for my team, and then it went kind of the rest of the company. Two, man, I've been blessed by having a lot of solid people around me. I had people that would take a risk on me. And whether it was because they saw some of those things I had done in the past or because of my sales record, but to say I went from sales to marketing on my own accord would be an absolute lie. I had people that took a leap of faith with me, and I like to think it worked out pretty well. Some of my funnest years was when I was the VP of marketing, and that was right before we got acquired. So having good people around me was probably the second thing. And third is kind of these rules that I live by. I think they have allowed me to continue to move forward, serving others, loving the people around me, give credit when credit is due, no surprises. All of those things I think factor into what has allowed me to now be able to build into a leader.
Got it. So let me get it straight. So then when you were director of market development strategy, you started a newsletter? Is that what you're saying? What was like a newsletter?
Yeah, when I was actually a manager in the field. So I was an account manager for TissueLink Salient, then moved in to become a field manager. And when I was a field manager is when I started to write these newsletters. I felt like I had these thoughts in my mind that my team might find some value in. So I'd start writing them down, and I'd write these two-page brain flows.
Whoa.
Share them with my team, and it was, blood management, the blood bank, anesthesiology. Sure. It was whatever I thought was, good knowledge. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So you just came up with something you saw that would be of value, and it almost created this opportunity for you where leadership noticed.
Yeah. I remember actually I was in my car driving to an account, and the CEO called me, and I didn't really know him that well at the time. It was still a smaller company, but my CEO, Joe Ormy, calls me and says, I don't know where you're writing these things from, but keep them going. I'm reading them. And that's when I knew, okay, I'm going to keep doing it. Now, Joe called me. Yeah. Joe called me. I'm going to keep writing them. No doubt.
Got it.
Yeah.
That is awesome. That is awesome. Okay. And so you put it out there twice now. So I'm going to ask, so do your best. What are these 10 rules that you live by?
You got it. I'm going to run through them. Are you ready?
I'm ready. Let's lay it out.
Some of these are from my managers. Some of these are ones that I just, I've learned to kind of adapt to over time, but one, no surprises, whether you're in the operating room, something goes off the sterile field, you don't have something you need. Don't wait till the last minute. Don't try and hide it. Hey, no surprises. Doc, I dropped it, or Doc, I don't have it, or Doc, it's coming. Got to be, honest. Same thing with your manager. Hey, I'm going to miss my number because of this. Don't wait to the end. There's no time like the present. In my company vehicle at the time, I wrote with dry erase marker on the windshield, what have I done today to move the business forward? And have I done everything I can today? So before I got home, I'd read that and I'll make one more call. So no time like the present. More facts, less emotion. Back when I was much younger, I would get mad and I'd be volatile on conference calls and, dial it back to facts, right? It doesn't have to be emotional. Maximize the value in your messaging is the fourth one. You're really just trying to drive home as much intent as you can, both verbal and visual when that was more of a marketing role.
Sure.
A lot of these, I also have verses behind, but be generous. 2 Corinthians 9:11. Just give it your all, man. If somebody needs something, help them.
Sure.
One that's helped me a ton along the way, give credit when it's due. It's not worth me trying to take credit for something that's either mine or partially mine. Help others, support others, give them credit when it's due. Especially now, man, love people, all people. That's another one on the list. Like number 7 or number 8, be thankful.
All right.
Be encouraging, and serve. Those are the last 3. My son will tell you, he's got a verse that he's learned from me, Hebrews 3:13, encourage one another daily, because man, do we need it, especially when you're out in the field and you're getting beat up. Yeah. Let's encourage each other. So there you go. There's the top 10.
That's beautiful. I absolutely love it. Wow. So do you put these anywhere so you can always see them and remember them? Are they in your office, in your home office, in your car? Where do you put them?
Yeah, I wish I could send you this picture. Yeah, they're all up on my dry erase board on the left. I pull them up on my screen, but I send them to my team, not because I want them to follow the rules, but it's because I want them to understand how I'm going to interact with my own rules. I'm not going to surprise you with something. I'm going to encourage you. I'm here to serve. So, yeah.
How long have you been using this type of system, and where did you get this idea from?
So I've been using it for about 5 years, probably, I think is when I finally wrote them down. And it probably kind of stemmed out of a couple things. One, I went through the book Strength Finders, where, it ranks your top, I think, 10 strengths and then your lower ones for improvement.
Right.
What shocked me is, as much as I think as me being a competitor, and number 2 was beliefs, came out very high as far as being firm in your beliefs when you're going out there, not just from a Christian value standpoint, but being strong in what you believe in, and meaning it's your product, your leadership, your opportunity, your potential. And I think when I started to read through those kind of characteristics, I felt like I got to write these things down. And at the same time, I was moving into a bigger leadership role. I felt like the timing was right.
That's beautiful. Love it. Absolutely love it. Okay. So you've been the Director of Partnership and Business Model Innovation, VP of Marketing, VP Orthopedic Solutions, and ultimately Enterprise Leader. How recently have you been in that position? I know in the beginning you said 2 to 3 years is a new position, but you specifically, how long have you been in it? And what's that been like in comparison to your other leadership roles?
Yeah, that's a great question. Being new, right, you're trying to learn how the role really works. I've been in the role myself about 1.5 years, getting closer to 2 years. It's different because it's influential. It's not a direct leadership style where somebody reports into you. And you're trying to influence across, 4 big groups, diabetes by itself or CVG. Those are all big groups on their own. So that's been probably the bigger challenge, is to try and influence somebody to deploy a certain strategy that may also synergistically help another BU that they're not necessarily connected to until it gets to the very top, right?
Okay.
So I think that's probably been the bigger challenge. And also you're coming into, I came out of one category, primarily orthopedics and what we know as the RTG, Restorative Therapies Group. And then to try and show that, prove credibility, build trust in a cardiac division, a big general surgery division, that's not done overnight. So it's taken some time to build up that credibility. And at the same time, you're building up the credibility with that account. That account, IDN, it might be a 50 hospital system that's looking to you as to be the main point of contact for Medtronic. And man, I'm telling you, you don't want to mess that up. So it takes, some good solid effort to show them that you're going to listen to them as your external customer, and you're going to listen to your internal customers as well.
Got it. So is the majority of your interaction internally, or do you actually have a lot of interaction with the actual customer?
I would say it's probably 50-50, maybe 60-40 interaction with the customer. It's a lot because as the main point of contact, you'll get calls for all sorts of things. A rep didn't pass vendor mate to, hey, strategically, we need to look at some different ways to increase patient throughput.
Got it.
So there's a lot of strategy with the higher level, probably C-suite of most of the IDNs. And then also I bridge the gap into a lot of ambulatory surgery centers as well. That, as you can imagine, is evolving dramatically with kind of the current scenario that we're in. Got
it. Okay. So take us back to when you were a representative. Help us understand, what makes an amazing representative. And I know you're going to have a really thorough perception because you've done it and you've led it at an even higher level. So now when you just take everything into account, what would you say makes a strong representative? What skills are they demonstrating on a consistent basis?
Yeah. I mean, it's tough to boil it into, word, but I would say it is value. And as much as that's easy just to say, you got to bring value. What I mean by that is you look at all the things we've talked through with the brain flows and going out and learning all these different aspects of things, having a varied background with marketing, engineering. You've got to be able to find how you're bringing differentiated value. Say if you're an orthopedic rep, there's lots of orthopedic reps now. There's lots of big companies and small companies, but you find that those relationships are so strong with those particular representatives because they're adding value above and beyond just the knowledge of their implant. They know how to do revisions. They know what they need to do if they're taking somebody else's product out and putting theirs in, or vice versa. They know what the patient might be going through, the different dynamics. So, I think it's really broadening somebody's knowledge base so that you can maximize the value you bring in any given day. I see a lot of reps that get isolated and they don't want to learn other things that are going on that might impact or maybe not impact the direct role that they're in. But I think the more you can be of value to whoever you're engaging with, that's where you can really drive home what your purpose is there.
Sure.
And I would just say right now in this given world, given how much change and adaptation there is, where sales reps are going to have a hard time getting in front of their customers.
Right.
How are we really going to drive that value? What is it going to be that's going to get you in front of that customer that is doing all telemedicine now? I think it's going to boil down to what you can bring that's differentiated from everybody else that's trying to get them to pick up the phone.
So then would you say that maybe you can quantify that as creativity and
Sure.
determination? You're really hungry to make it happen.
Yeah, I think those are all fair. They can all tuck into it, but you've got to be able to go above and beyond what you're doing now just to know your product in and out. You just can't walk away from something like that. You've got to be able to really understand what's going on in the environment, what else might apply. I mean, you've got things like, the changes in reimbursement rates, the changes to ASCs. So if I'm selling a total joint, I also need to understand the reimbursement rate as that moves to an ambulatory surgery center. I need to understand that dynamic so I can help my doc better understand if, is that a good idea, bad idea? Not that I've got to be an expert, but have an opinion. So I think creativity is a good way to say it, that what else do I need to know that I don't know now that my competitor doesn't know?
Got it. That's excellent. And for those listeners, one thing that I encounter a lot are people that want to transition into medical devices, right? And you have pharma that wants to transition to medical devices, or business to business that wants to transition to medical devices. And when I talk to so many medical device professionals, all of them share this theme that people need to understand what they're getting into. It's not going to be what you experience in pharma. It's not going to be experienced in business to business. It's its own unique set of experiences. What would you say to that?
Yeah, I absolutely agree. It is different. I would say to not be daunted if you are a pharma or B2B rep that's trying to get into med device. We used to hire people from all sorts of different backgrounds, mortgage industry, except, the people that are hustling, they're showing that curiosity, they're showing that additional value. But it is different, right? I mean, you're going into a very sensitive situation, again, especially given COVID. You're walking into an OR where you've got a patient on the table that's either awake or not awake. You've got to understand the dynamic of the room. It's a high intense situation. And I think all of those things do make it completely different. It's you've got to be able to step up. If a doc is doing something wrong in a surgery and it's wrong, you've got to be able to step up and ask them to stop.
Got it.
That's not simple, right? That's not making a sales call. That's
right.
That's above and beyond, right? I mean, that's totally different. But that's what adds that value, right? That's what builds that trust between you and that doctor. He or she's going to thank you for doing something and stepping in rather than waiting till the end. Again, no surprises, right? Hey, doc, I wouldn't have done that if I were you. Well, you should have told me in the case. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Got it. That's wonderful to hear. That's good. So when it comes to navigating your career, then what would you say are maybe some ground rules that you need to follow to navigate your career? If you're a medical device sales rep and you're thinking about leadership and you want to, almost follow the path that you went, what are some things to keep in mind just to really start doing within your role and maybe outside of your role?
Yeah. So I think even my current manager has continued to ask me to work above the level that I'm at. And I think that's probably one of the most critical things is you could excel and be 120% to plan, but are you 120% to plan, or your peers 120% to plan because you helped them? What are you doing outside your role to elevate your position to say, listen, I'm showing not only can I master this role, that I can take on more. Whether that's sales, you're helping with marketing. Obviously, you've got a lot of field trainers out there. And then I would also ask the person that you might be able to reach out to as a mentor, what else can I do? What am I, so attach yourself to a mentor as you're trying to increase those things. What are you doing outside of your current space that they would see would be valuable and really help you take those steps?
Sure.
It's a lot of what helped me when I was younger, but also just kind of, I'm still doing it now, right? Continue to add things onto my plate that I can add value outside of what would be deemed my traditional role.
Excellent. So I take it you probably get approached to be a mentor from a lot of people, right?
Surprisingly, not as many as you would think.
I would just think like you're the enterprise leader. Everybody's asking you, hey, will you be my mentor?
I think it's surprising. And my mentors would say the same thing. When you reach out and you ask them how many other mentors you say, it's surprisingly low, right? About how many people really, one, will ask you, or two, will be intentional about continuing on in that mentorship.
Got it.
I've been thankful to mentor a couple people, but it tends to fade away pretty quickly unless they're intentional about, hey, every month I'm going to put on a call. Mentor 2 people now, and the only reason that I think we've still continued is there's value in that relationship, and it's scheduled monthly.
Got it.
It's always there. Yeah.
So then, as far as getting a mentor, it's as easy as asking and being diligent and keeping up the relationship. Period.
Yeah, it really is. And I would say, there's different levels of it. We had a speaker come through. There's the initial relationship. You can't just jump into being a mentor. I've got to know you. You've got to know me a little bit, so I know it's going to be a fit. So there's kind of that relationship. Yeah. Then there's mentorship. There's sponsorship, which is a little bit different. If I know you're going after a position, I may recommend you for it.
Sure.
And I think the way they broke that down is pretty valid, but it all starts with asking, hey, would you help me? And this is where I'm looking to go. Which level do you see you'd be at? Mentorship, sponsor, what have you?
Got it. I'm going to change gears a little bit here, and I'm going to ask you a question that I'd love to just learn from you. Throughout your career, of course, you've experienced a lot of challenges, difficult times. Could you touch on any especially difficult time that you really had to evaluate why you're doing this, that kept you going and kept you focused and allowed you to continue?
Yeah, man. One of the challenging times I had is I remember walking out of an OR where I got torn apart. I don't even know if it was necessarily my fault, wrong place, wrong time. I didn't represent myself well. I'll take all the blame. Remember walking out of there almost in tears. And as at that point, almost a 30-year-old man to be walking out in tears was a humbling experience. And those are the turning points where you can either decide, look, I'm not going to do this, and I'm going to go find something else I like, or you're going to persevere, and you're going to go back in there and prove that you're still valuable to that person. Own your mistakes, apologize, do what you need to do to go back in there while holding your beliefs in place, right? I mean, not saying you got to let yourself get run over, and build yourself back up. And I'm happy to say I did go back and do that in that account. Remember exactly where it was. Remember the people, right? It was a good, solid learning lesson that I had to go back and kind of overcome. Another one, right? And we're in sales. I was highly commissioned. I was supposed to be highly commissioned, right? And it was struggling to close accounts. And I remember sitting in my small group at church and like, you guys got to pray for me. This is going to go one way or the other here in the next month or two. And I had a newborn at the time. It's a lot of pressure, right? You're in the crucible. Again, you can make a choice. You can fold or you can keep pushing. Yeah. And I kept pushing. I remember I was working 18-hour days. I was in the field. I was doing everything I can. And it led me to the success and kind of the roots that I have now. But no, those were not fun times, man. They were tough. So I can give you lots of examples, unfortunately, but those are great.
Those are great. No, I appreciate it. Thanks for sharing that. I think I know the answer, but I'm going to ask you anyway. What would you say sustains you? What keeps you grounded and just allows you to give it your all every day and make things happen?
Yeah. Faith and family are 2 big things for sure. Now, especially as I'm older and my kids are older, it used to be kind of the grind and the competition. And now I think it moved into more of I want to be there for my family. I want to be of value. I would still say the exact same phrase. I want them to know when I'm there, and I want them to miss me when I'm gone.
Sure.
Applies to my family, my coworkers, my boss, my entire company. And that still drives me to today. Is I don't want anybody, when I leave the room, for them to go, why was that guy here? I want him to he added some value. That was good, even if it's a little bit. I want to add value.
That's excellent. That is excellent. Okay. So this is something I ask every guest. So when you go all the way back to, let's take you back to right before Brasseler even. And
okay.
You can give yourself a piece of advice with all the wonderful information you know now. What would it be?
Yeah. I'm going to have to think about that one. Man, I think it would have to be something to be thankful with where you're at,
okay, but
strive to be where you want to be.
Okay.
I think back at the times of when I could have folded. I think back to when I was selling tubing and stopcocks. I could have stayed there and been happy.
Right.
I wasn't satisfied with that. I wanted to continue to drive. So I think it'd have to be something along those lines. Like you got to keep grinding. It is tough, but it will pay off. And here I am, this is almost 20 years later in med device, and pretty thankful for everything, all the experience I've gone through, but the drive and motivation to continue and to stick with it. It's easy to say now, but it's the same advice I gave. You got to stick with it and keep running. Excellent.
Where do you see yourself five years out? Do you have any other things to conquer, or what's on the horizon?
Man, we got lots of things still to conquer for sure.
Okay.
I think one of the biggest things is I don't manage a big team right now. I'd love to get back to managing and leading a group or a business unit.
Sure.
There's just something of value in developing people and true servant leadership. That's where I felt the best when I was VP of marketing, reorganized the whole team. So people were really utilizing their strengths in their core areas.
Yeah.
It was 4 of the most rewarding years of my life, with seeing me flourish and those people flourish just all together. Our culture was the strongest I've seen. I'd love to get back to that, and whatever that, if it's a bigger part within Medtronic, that would be great. But that's where I see myself going. I'd like to run a business unit someday. But again, thankful where I am right now.
Excellent. You were wonderful to hear from, Adam, and we're so happy you came. If there's any bit of advice, you've given us so much, but if there's anything else, any advice you'd leave for our audience, what would it be?
I'd say, I'd go back to one of the primary ones we talked about. Be creative. I'll use your words. I like that. Be creative and look to value beyond your core area. And 2, ask for help. Don't be afraid to ask for help and say, hey, I don't understand this. Or, I look at this now. I look at my oldest son. He's an AP bio. He's willingly asking for help. And if he didn't, he'd be floundering a little bit. Sure. I'm helping him, and I'm floundering, right? But, ask for help. So be creative, go outside your own domain and reach out when you need it.
Be creative, ask for help, and go outside your domain and reach out. Love it. Yeah. This was great, Adam. Thank you so much for being on today, and hope to see you again and just hear where you take things and learn more about your progress.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you very much.
Definitely. Now that was quite the interview, wasn't it? 2-page brain flows, a newsletter with pearls of wisdom that he'd share with his team, utilizing all these different perspectives from all these different players in a procedure. I mean, that was some good stuff. And, one thing that so many guests mentioned that Adam also mentioned is when it comes to sales in the medical space, it is all about service. And Adam was about that from the beginning. I mean, even when he stepped into leadership, just to start these brain flows, you knew that he even wanted to serve those individuals that were working for him to the best of his ability, to the point that it got noticed by the CEO, who reached out and not only congratulated him on what he was sending out, but encouraged him to keep it going. A couple of things I want to point out that I just loved hearing in this interview were the 10 rules. And I'm going to go ahead and label them the 10 rules of Adam King. And I'm going to run them by for everyone that was listening. And and because I think they're worth mentioning again. Number one, no surprises. Number two, no time like the present. Those two alone can take you a long way in your day-to-day, and especially when you're going after a position. Number three, more facts, less emotion. Number four, maximize the value in your messaging. Number five, be generous. 6, give credit when it's due. 7, love people. From a genuine space, love people. 8, be thankful. 9, be encouraging to everyone that you encounter. And 10, service. This was great. You know, there were so many pearls that he dropped for us in this episode. And I really want to challenge everyone listening, you know, really think about the impact you have on your space, right? So when you're at work, whether you're working from home or you're back in the field or you're back in an office, think about the impact you have with everyone you encounter. I think following a set of rules like this, I really think it can guide you and make sure that, just like Adam has mentioned, people miss you when you're gone and people know when you're there. And I'll say it better because I want to say it the way Adam said it. People will know when you're there and they'll miss you when you're gone. That is an amazing phrase. I think if everyone takes that to heart, it's going to take them to new heights. Again, thank you for listening to the Medical Sales Podcast. And if you're someone that's looking for a position, maybe you've been listening to these episodes and you've been thinking, you know, I really want to step into the medical sales space, whether that's medical device sales, molecular sales, genetic sales, pharmaceutical sales, biotechnology sales. You've taken it upon yourself to say, you know what, this is the space I want to be in. Make sure you visit evolveyoursuccess.com and just follow the prompts and learn about a program that can really help you make the difference, get you the interview you're looking for, and actually help you land a position. And if you're someone that's looking to really develop in your sales, you've been in the industry maybe a year, maybe 2, or maybe even 9 or 10 years, and you're thinking, you know what, I want to take my career to a different space. I really want to step my game up. Or maybe you want to get into leadership, or maybe you're trying to get to a different level of leadership. Again, visit evolveyoursuccess.com and go ahead and select improve sales performance, and let's have a conversation and let's see what we can do to help you get to that space and that space in your career that you've really been thinking about getting to. Again, thank you so much for listening to the Medical Sales Podcast. Make sure you return next week for some more amazing guests and another fascinating episode. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. And remember, I have a couple programs that show you exactly how to break into the medical sales industry, become a top-performing medical sales professional, and also how to masterfully navigate your career to executive-level leadership. Check out these programs and learn more at evolveyoursuccess.com. Stay tuned for more awesome content with amazing interviews.